Now, let's look at some examples of valid disabled parking placards and license plates. This is important for writing good citations that will not be dismissed due to an error. Although the placards are produced by the Texas Department of Transportation, they are issued by the county tax assessor's office. A citizen must have a valid prescription from their doctor to receive a placard or a license plate. Blue placards are issued for permanent disabilities, and red placards are issued for temporary disabilities. To check the validity of a placard, the first thing you look for is that the top of the placard has been completed by a county official. It will have a text dot numbered sticker. The month and year will be punched, and this must match the month and the year that are written. And also the placards have a hologram on the back, which prevents them from being copied by an expensive color copier. Blue placards are for permanent disabilities, and they must be renewed every 4 years. Red placards are for temporary disabilities, and they are only valid for 6 months. And also the size of the placard is important. All placards issued in Texas will be consistently this size, 3 7/8 by 9.5, or you can think of the size of a long white business envelope. That would give you a good visual of the size of the placard. Here's some fake or expired old placards. As you can see, the format's different. They're the wrong size. They have the date written, but there's no holes to punch out the date. And basically they're expired. But if you see anybody using a placard that doesn't match the original specifications that we talked about, it's not a valid state of Texas placard, and it cannot be used to legally park in an on-street disabled parking space. Sometimes employers issue disabled parking placards, and people may try to use those, but those aren't considered valid. It has to be one issued by the Harris County tax assessor. Okay, now let's look at some valid placards. As you can see, the top part has been filled out by the county. The first part is the county number. This part is a portion of the owner's Texas driver's license, and then it has their initials. Here is a sticker showing the placard number that was produced by TxDOT. The holes are punched, and the punches match what's written. These are all required for a valid placard. And if a placard is properly displayed from the rearview mirror, you will not be able to see the hologram sticker that's on the back, and there's no need for you to try to check it and see that. But always remember, as a volunteer, you are not authorized to ask a citizen for their ID. Although the law requires the placard owner to be present in the car when a placard is being used, we're not authorized for them to show proof or to prove that the placard is theirs. In fact, even our ParkHouston enforcement officers are not authorized to do this. If we suspect fraud, we have to get a police officer to do this and ask them to check for the ID. So please do not ask anyone for their ID. This could lead to program dismissal. Now, what is wrong with this placard? Take a few moments to look at it. Yes, it hasn't been completed at the top by the county. So this is probably stolen from somewhere, or either it's a good fraudulent copy of a placard. Okay, take a look at the next one. What's wrong with this placard? Look at the date. This placard expires on 12/29. Do you remember how long temporary placards are valid for? Yes, they're only valid for 6 months. So you keep that in mind. It's very clear that this has been altered. And then if you look at the holes say December 2019, but they tried to change the 1 to a 2 to make it expire in 12/29, which is like 7 years away. And there's no way a placard would be valid for 7 years. Now, not all states add expiration dates to their placards. If you don't see a date, we have to make the assumption that the placard is valid and we don't issue a citation. I know, for example, you'll see some Louisiana placards that do not have dates. They do not issue expiration dates for their permanent disability placards. So you probably will encounter this in the field. And if there's no expiration date, then make the assumption that it's valid. The international symbol of access is required on the license plate of all vehicles that park in a disabled parking space. This is including disabled veterans. The new law became effective on January 1st. A DV plate must have the international symbol of access, or it must display a valid placard to legally park in a marked disabled parking space. Many veterans are not aware of this, and we have information cards that you can pass out to share this information. The state implemented the law, but they didn't have a vigorous public relations campaign to share the information. So like I said, we have these cards that you can pass out to help us spread the word and make veterans aware of this change in regulations. Now, even if it's an out-of-state plate, if it's parked in a disabled parking space, it must also have the international symbol of access to legally park in a marked disabled parking space. Just having the words disabled is not enough. It has to have that wheelchair emblem or the international symbol of access. Or if you walk around the front and see a valid placard, then they're good. There used to be a lot of confusion because some people would have DV plates, but they would have a license plate holder covering up the words. So you didn't know if it was a DV plate or if it was just a regular plate. But since now that the international symbol of access is required, this is no longer an issue. So always remember, if you see a license plate without the international symbol of access, you have to walk around the front to see if they have a valid disabled placard. We appreciate our veterans, and this law applies to all veteran license plates. This should not be viewed as denying veterans' rights. This law is to ensure that the parking spaces are reserved for individuals with mobility impairments and who truly have a vital need for the ADA parking spaces. Think of this: a parking lot with 25 parking spaces is only required to have one ADA parking space. So that puts these spaces in high demand, and it was getting very hard for some people to find one. The Veterans of Foreign Affairs and the City of Houston's Office of Veterans of Foreign Affairs supported this new legislation. So, like I said, we have the information cards, and we'd love for you to help us spread the word and help us pass some out. When you come by to pick up your badge and your ticket book, we'll give you some of those cards also. Okay, now we're into the meat and potatoes of the program. Let's talk about issuing a parking citation.